Dangote just said he's building the world's biggest refinery. Not Africa's biggest, the world's biggest. And while that's happening, 8 African countries are being run by soldiers. Malawi just stopped exporting its raw mineral resources, and Nigeria is climbing back to number 3 on the continent's economy list. Here's what nobody's talking about though. Who is actually holding the pen while all this is going down? Many of you have been telling me in the comment section that we should keep on doing the weekly recap on the hottest news possible across the world and in Africa. Look, this week was wild. It felt like watching Africa floor the gas and slam the brake at the same exact time. You have got Dangote trying to beat out India, elected presidents getting kicked out left and right, countries basically telling multinationals, yeah, if you're making money here, your office better be here too. You see, something big is moving. Power is changing hands. And if you blink, you are going to miss who's actually winning here. Welcome to the Strategic Lens. Let me walk you through what went down this week. So, Aliko Dangote wakes up and says he's doubling his refinery from 650,000 barrels a day to 1.4 million. You know what that means, right? Nigeria is about to have the largest single oil refinery on the planet, not just Africa, on Earth. India's Jamnagar refinery has been sitting at the top for years, and Dangote basically said, cool, we are taking that. Now here is the part many people aren't really getting. For how many years has Nigeria been selling crude oil, then turning around and buying back the refined stuff? Now think about that for a second. You are selling raw materials cheap, buying back the finished product expensive. It's like you grow cocoa beans, ship them to Switzerland, then bought chocolate bars back at 10 times the price. Makes no sense, right? So we have the old Nigeria who exports crude to Europe, Asia, and refines it and imports them back to Nigeria. Then we have the new Nigeria who refines oil locally and then exports them to the world. When Dangote finishes this thing, Nigeria stops getting played by its own oil. They become the ones calling the shots. They set the prices, they control who gets what. West Africa, Central Africa, everyone's coming to Lagos now. And get this, Dangote's worth just hit $30 billion with a B. First African after Mansa Musa, who according to records is still the richest person that ever lived. Dangote did all this by building an entire cement empire, and now he's doing the same thing with energy. But hold up, before we start celebrating, there is always a catch, right? People are asking the real question, who's actually gonna benefit from this? Sure, Dangote says 65,000 jobs, mostly Nigerians. That sounds good on paper. But is this money actually reaching regular people, or is it just making one guy even richer? And here is something I want you to think about. If Nigeria gets energy independence and Dangote gets even wealthier, is that a win for everyone or just really good marketing? What Nigeria is doing here goes way deeper than just building one big refinery. They are sending a message to every single oil-producing country in Africa. Stop shipping raw materials, process your own stuff, keep the money. That's what economic nationalism looks like when you actually do it. And if this works, Angola is gonna try, Chad might try it, maybe even Libya when things settle down there. You see, Europe and Asia have been the middlemen making bank off this for decades. Now they are about to be kept out of the picture. Okay, so while Dangote is doing his thing, the IMF just dropped a report saying Nigeria is getting back to number 3 on Africa's economy list by 2026. Wait, number 3? Yeah, behind South Africa and Egypt. We are talking a projected GDP of $334.34 billion. So how will they pull this off? 2 words: painful reforms. President Tinubu did something that could have ended his political career. They cut fuel subsidies. They let the naira float. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. These reforms, they hurt people. Gas prices shot up. Inflation went crazy. Regular Nigerians felt it immediately in their pockets. But here is the thing about subsidies. They cost a ton of money. The government was burning through billions, keeping gas artificially cheap, while the economy was bleeding foreign exchange. That's not something you can keep doing forever. The IMF said, and I'm quoting them here, growth in the region reflects ongoing progress in macroeconomic stabilization and reform. Translation: Nigeria finally stopped pretending everything was fine and actually dealt with some real problems. But here is where it gets complicated. GDP growth looks amazing in reports. It sounds fantastic when the IMF talks about it. But what does it actually mean for someone selling tomatoes in Kano or someone running a small shop in Lagos? Because you can have all the GDP growth in the world while regular people are still struggling to put food on the table. You know what I mean? The World Bank actually warned about this exact thing. They said if there aren't social protections in place, millions risk poverty. So yeah, the reforms might work on paper, but only if the government actually uses this growth to help everyday people. The bottom line: Nigeria took serious risk on itself. They took decisions that could have sparked serious unrest. And economically, so far it's working. But the real test isn't really 2026. It's what happens in 2028, 2029, 2030. Can they keep going? Can they turn those GDP numbers into actual jobs? Better roads, more security? Because if regular Nigerians don't start feeling the benefits in their daily lives, those IMF projections are just gonna be numbers on a page. Now, let's switch gears. Burkina Faso just did something that made every multinational CEO a little nervous. They passed this law saying if your company is making more than $8.8 million a year in Burkina Faso, your headquarters need to be in Burkina Faso. Not Abidjan, not Accra, not Dakar. Right there in Ouagadougou. Why does this matter? Just follow the money for a second. For years, companies have been operating in Burkina Faso, but keeping their headquarters in countries they think are more stable, which means tax revenue, legal stuff, executive decisions, all happening somewhere else. Burkina Faso basically said, hold on, you are making money from our markets, hiring our people, using our resources, but you are barely paying taxes here. Nah, we are done with that. This is what economic sovereignty looks like when you are actually serious about it. They are saying you want our market, plant real roads here, hire locals for top positions, pay your taxes here, build something here. And if this actually works, you are going to see other African countries try to do the same thing. Imagine if Ghana did this, Kenya, Senegal, suddenly multinationals can't just take profits and run anymore. It's risky, no doubt, but honestly, maybe it's the kind of risk Africa needs to take. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or actually the 8 elephants. Mali, Chad, Guinea, Sudan, Burkina Faso, Niger, Gabon, Madagascar. 8 African countries have had military takeovers since 2020. And here's what's wild. Most of the time, people are actually celebrating, not protesting, not rioting, celebrating. Let me paint a picture for you. Ibrahim Traoré, takes power in Burkina Faso in 2022. 3 years later, people are saying he has done more than the previous elected presidents in 20 years. Roads getting built, security situation improving, crackdowns on corruption. Meanwhile, the guys who got elected, years of promises, barely any results, things getting worse instead of better. So, here is the uncomfortable question that everyone is avoiding. What if democracy, at least the version we have been told works everywhere, doesn't really fit everywhere? If a military leader brings roads, safety, clean water faster than an elected president, does that election even matter to someone who just wants their kids to be safe? Okay, before anyone think I'm promoting dictatorships, let's be clear. Coups are dangerous. They set bad precedents. They break down institutions. Humanitarian rights groups are worried for good reasons. What happens when these military leaders get too comfortable? When anyone who criticizes them gets silenced? When temporary power becomes permanent? History is full of liberators who turned into oppressors. So yeah, there is real risk here. But the flip side is this. The civilian governments that got overthrown, they were failing badly. Corruption everywhere, security falling apart, people suffering. So when the military steps in and actually delivers results, people aren't thinking about the Geneva Convention or whatever. They are thinking about whether they can finally sleep at night without worrying about attacks. You know what this really comes down to? Africans are tired of being told to copy someone else's homework. China didn't follow Western democracy. They built their own system. It works for them. Singapore did the same thing. Rwanda under Kagame too. Maybe Africa needs to stop asking, are we democratic enough for the West to approve? And start asking, does this system actually work for us? There is this proverb, a tree cannot stand without roots. Maybe the roots Africa needs aren't in Paris or Washington. Maybe they are right here on our own soil. Here is the thing. This only works if these military leaders actually deliver long term. If they build real institutions, if they eventually hand power back to civilian rule, but stronger, better civilian rule. Because if they don't, if they just become new generation of dictators, then we have just swapped one problem for another. So what do you think? Is Africa redefining the way governance works? Or are we watching a dangerous slide backwards? Now, quick bonus before we wrap. Malawi just banned all mineral exports. Yeah, you heard that right. You want Malawi's rutile, raw earths, whatever they have got, you got to process it there first. President Madurika said this could bring $500 million a year. That's massive for a country like Malawi. Now this is basically the same playbook Burkina Faso is running, just with minerals instead of headquarters. Stop letting foreign companies take all the value and leave nothing behind. But here is the problem. Malawi doesn't yet have the infrastructure to process high-grade minerals. So you ban exports, but then what happens if you can't process it yourself? You have just created a black market. Still, I respect what they are doing. They are basically saying we would rather struggle building our own processing industry than keep selling raw materials for nothing. That's thinking long term. For any development, you need to start from somewhere. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. China is the way it is today, but it didn't start the way it is. It started from somewhere. So never be discouraged even in your own business. You want to start up a business? Don't look at the final stages. Start from somewhere and move to what you want. And slowly but surely move to your objective. Alright, let me bring all this together. This week showed us something important. Africa is not asking for permission anymore. Dangote is not asking if he can build the biggest refinery in the world. He's just doing it. Nigeria is not asking if tough reforms will be popular. They are pushing through anyway. Burkina Faso is not asking if multinationals like their new rules. They are making them follow or leave. And 8 countries didn't ask if coups are the right move. They said the old way failed. We are trying something different. There is another saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Africa is trying to do both. Right now, fast changes, long-term vision, working together as a continent. But here is the reality of redrawing maps. Somebody always loses their territory. Europe is losing influence. Western financial institutions are losing control. Old systems are breaking down. So the question isn't whether Africa is changing. That's already happening right now, this week, in real time. The real question is this: who is holding the pen? Is it still the IMF, the World Bank, old colonial powers? Or it's finally Africans themselves? I will leave you with that thought. Drop a comment and tell me which story hit hardest this week. The refinery, the coups, the economic moves? And if you haven't subscribed yet, I don't know what you're waiting for, but surely it's going to help this message go to more people. We are challenging stereotypes here, amplifying African voices, telling the stories mainstream media won't touch. Next week, I'm diving into something you are not going to believe, but I'll tease that later. Stay sharp, stay curious, and keep asking questions. This is The Strategic Lens. This is Africa Today, and you're watching The Strategic Lens. I'm Asongwe Luis. Peace.